Thank you, Carla. We are so excited each of you could join us, and we want to give a special shout out to those of you joining at an in-person watch party. This session will include a deep dive into healing with two amazing panelists, and then we will all enjoy a healing practice together led by Chetna Mehta. You may have noticed that we are including a focus on healing throughout our Green Team Summits, because Faith in Place believes deeply in the connectedness between healing ourselves, our social divides, and our earth. As Paul Hawkins shared in How to Bring Our Planet Back to Life, our planet is telling us a story. Vital connections have been severed between human beings and nature, within nature itself, and between people, religions, governments, and commerce. This disconnection is the origin of the climate crisis. It is the very root, and it is where we discover solutions and actions that can engage all people. This year, our summit's theme is Rooted Together, as we actively work to create a society where we honestly and intentionally address the source of disconnection. By addressing inequalities and injustices, we are healing not only our culture as a whole, but we are addressing one of the key factors that leads to depression and anxiety. Professors Kate Pickett and Richard Wilkinson have shown that as inequality grows, depression and anxiety grows along with it. When we talk about healing, we have to both explore what it means from a societal level and on an individual level. Our panelists are experts in this intersection, and we look forward to hearing their insights in just a minute. First, I want to take a moment to thank the sponsors and partners that made tonight possible, especially our headline sponsor, Natural Resources Defense Council. I would also like to acknowledge the Illinois Environmental Council, the Gaylord and Dorothy Donnelly Foundation, the Singer Wealth Advisory of Raymond James, the Sisters of Providence of St. Mary of the Woods, and the Unitarian Church of Evanston. Before we welcome our panelists to the floor, let me turn to Jaleesa Malden for our land acknowledgement.
Thank you so much, Liz, and welcome everyone. I am Jaleesa Malden, Faith in Places Indiana Outreach Coordinator, and I am pleased to share with you a land acknowledgement honoring the ancestral heritage of the land on which I stand this evening. I am calling from what is today known as Gary, Indiana. This is the traditional homeland of the Peoria, the Potawatomi, the Maiamia, the Oceti, the Sakowin, the Kaskaskia, and the Kickapoo nations. Let us pause for a moment, and I invite you to drop in the chat where you are calling from and the ancestral heritage of that land. All right. You can use the link titled Native Land to begin answering questions about whose land you reside on and how you are benefiting by living on this land, and that is traditional territory of the indigenous people. We also have a page on our website linked in the chat with podcasts, books, videos, organizations, and more to help you learn about the history of the people indigenous to the land where we live. This acknowledgement from Faith in Place demonstrates a commitment to continue the process to dismantle the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism. We acknowledge these Native nations are still present among us, and as a team, we are learning about the true history of our land. Our aim is to become a vibrant, inclusive community with environmental justice at the core of our efforts. Now, I would like to introduce Isioma Odum, who will be moderating tonight's panel. Isioma is Faith in Places Chicago Outreach Senior Coordinator and an expert in racial healing. In addition to leading Faith in Places healing circles, Isioma completed her Master of Arts in Social Justice from Loyola University. And this year, she was selected as one of only 40 national leaders to participate in the Culture of Health Leadership Institute for Racial Healing, which is a leadership experience supported by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. It is an honor to turn the stage over to Isioma.
Thank you, Jaleesa, and good evening, everyone. As Jaleesa shared, I'm Isioma Odom, tonight's moderator for our panel Exploring Healing. I'm excited to welcome two panelists to join me and share from their wealth of expertise on this topic. As Gloria Walton, President and CEO of the Solutions Project wrote, "It takes courage to challenge old ways and create new ones, and it requires love." After all, love is the source of this transformational power. Love for ourselves, our people, and the land. Today's panelists embody and empower others to embody this transformational love as they challenge the ways we do harm to one another and teach a new pattern for living in communities and as individuals. We will have a Q&A after the panel, so feel free to chat questions as they come up. So first, let me welcome Karen Crawford Sims to our panel. Karen is an experienced consultant, trainer, facilitator, and coach, and has a master's degree in marriage and family therapy. She has spent over 30 years advocating for individuals, families, and communities who have been marginalized because of race, gender, sexual orientation, identity, health, or their socioeconomic status. She is the founder of the Trauma and Resilience Initiative Incorporation, a not-for-profit that trains, educates, and advocates and promotes resilience and justice for individuals, families, organizations, and communities. Welcome, Karen. And I'd also like to welcome Annabeth Roeschley to our panel. Annabeth serves the Executive Director of the Brethren Mennonite Council, BMC, for LGBTQ Interests, and is an activist and advisor for intersectional justice within and beyond Mennonite Church, USA. Annabeth holds a Master of Divinity from Chicago Theological Seminary with a concentration in LGBTQ and religious studies. As a queer abolitionist, theologian, spiritual care curator, and politicized chaplain, Annabeth aims to deconstruct theo-ideologies of domination to nurture liberatory relationships and movements, and to accompany people through grief and loss. Welcome, Annabeth. So we're gonna jump into our questions now for our panel. So the first question is, this session explores the intersection between healing and justice. Can you each introduce yourselves and share a little about what you do and how it connects with this session's topic? And I'll start with Annabeth.
Hello, good evening. Thank you so much for this welcome and for the grounding of this evening and for acknowledging the land that I'm on here in Chicago, what is called Chicago. Yes, I am pulled into this intersection of healing and justice in a number of ways, and want to speak to the wisdom, the collective wisdom, and the communities that have shaped me as a way of introducing myself. Currently, I'm the executive director of the Brethren Mennonite Council for LGBTQ Interests. And I get to focus on what healing and justice looks like for queer and trans people and other marginalized people who are connected to the Anabaptist faith tradition. This intersection of healing and justice has taken shape for me as well, alongside survivors of sexualized violence and people who were also experiencing housing insecurity fighting for affordable housing in Washington, D.C. Healing and justice has taken shape in co-creating community garden spaces grounded in harm reduction principles. It's taken shape here in Chicago, working alongside survivors of police torture. And it's taken shape studying theology in a seminary and learning from liberationist, abolitionist, Black womanist, anti-colonial traditions about the sacred and about doing theology. So yeah, all of these communities have profoundly shaped how I hold these understandings and embody these understandings of healing and liberation, and have really shaped, I think, who I am in these movements. Thank you. It's really good to be here.
Thank you, Annabeth. Karen?
So I also want to acknowledge the grounding and this time together and the importance of this conversation. So I'm going to answer the question slightly a little bit different because I was at a training earlier today and was reminded that there in this time, right, in space, there's lots of miscommunication about language. And so I want to tell you, for me, what I understand justice to be, and why I think if we're looking at healing, particularly I do a lot of work around trauma, and I'm thinking about historical, cultural, intergenerational, and ancestral trauma, right? Like addressing structural inequality. Justice means that if we're creating just societies, we're not just creating fairness, we're really intentionally dismantling the structures that have caused harm, right? So we want to think about all of the structures, which means that we are acknowledging historical wounding, all the intersections of all forms of oppression, and we're committed to make right, often through restorative practices, through healing practices, through transformative practices. And I sort of fundamentally believe, and it has sort of been my life's work, to do a couple things. One, if we want to create more just societies, then the locus of power, control, and decision-making need to be in the hands of people most impacted by the problem. So we're right? We're giving back, re-energizing, doing that. We're also committed to building healing relationships so that we're constantly looking not just to band-aid things, right? And so when I think about climate issues, we would be seeing all of the work to heal the planet being connected to all the work that we do to address poverty, to address all forms of oppression, right? So trans rights, like they all work together, and you can't not see them as this web sort of forming together. So if we want to do healing, we've got to really be about healing. So that's how I see the intersection in my work.
I love that. Next question. The theme of our summit is Rooted Together, and is diving into different angles and perspectives on what it means for communities that care about justice, the environment, and faith. In your experience, how does the practice of healing draw us together? Karen, I'll start with you.
So I think particularly from a faith perspective, we could utilize so many of our cultural, spiritual practices to promote collective healing, right? And I think sometimes there's been a temptation to sort of rescue, fix, right? Like to make better quickly, which doesn't get at the real work of looking at what is wounded. And so one, I think leaning into some of our more spiritual practices to come together, to build this web of connection, to look at how we do that. And also using our sort of grounding practices to increase our capacity to heal the planet, right? Because one of the reasons why I think we don't do good justice and liberation work is that it is hard to sit with the wounds that we inadvertently cause, or to sit with sometimes our complicit, our participation in systems that cause harm. It is sometimes hard to acknowledge where we aren't our brothers, sisters, neighbors, keepers, right? And we have not done good work to the planet. So I think those meditative, healing, rhythmic, repetitive, collective healing rituals that soothe us, that fortify us and keep us ready for the journey, I would invite us to lean into. So we need to do this in community, and we need to lean into our cultural practices.
Thank you, Karen. Annabeth, same question for you.
Yes, thank you for that, Karen. I'm really resonating with so much of what you're saying. As I was thinking about this question, I wanted to first kind of name that I don't think healing necessarily draws us together. Thinking about all of these individualized notions of healing that seem especially prevalent under this like self-help capitalism. And I think we could even say a kind of self-help religion or spirituality. Those kinds of healing is very privatized, and it's there to be consumed and maybe even controlled or as a form of control. So I think when we do connect or reconnect self-healing with the collective, and when we try to do that in a way that actually draws us together and has this like multifaceted drawing together that we're naming, and especially one with a justice imperative, right? I think this actually takes a lot of intention, because we're going upstream in this kind of privatized, commercialized healing that's very mainstream. So I see this kind of the way that healing draws us together. I see it both. It can be an act of resistance to that dominant kind of self-help healing. It can be an act of reclamation when we recognize that this bringing together of healing and spirituality and justice is so ancient, right? In our indigenous traditions and in many religious traditions, and especially in the Judeo-Christian Bible, probably in this context, the well-being of the collective is essential for what it means to be in right relationship and in faithful alignment, right? So yes, I mean, as Karen was saying, this kind of, that the healing that does draw us together is so many things. It's the healing of our relationships with ourselves, our relationships with our neighbors, our relationships with the enemy in the biblical tradition, our relationships to non-human kin. It's healing our relationships to the economies and the power structures that shape our shared life together. And of course, it's the healing of the planet and our relationship to the planet. And I really, as I was thinking about the title of this summit, this idea of being rooted together, the image and framing of entanglement is what was coming up for me. And it's this way of how all of these aspects of both healing and the traumas and the harm that need to be healed are all caught up with each other. And I think this is both that kind of, this entanglement is really, if I'm honest, it's messy in a way that can be overwhelming. Because it bears witness to the magnitude of what needs to be healed, right? But it's also an entanglement that can be so empowering and even hopeful, because all of our efforts to resist and move towards liberation and transformation are entangled as well. So it brings me back right around to, like, we cannot heal alone. You know, we are part of ecosystems, both ecological and social, and our life depends on moving towards healing collectively and together.
I love that perspective. Thank you, Annabeth. We have one more question we'll do. Describe why systemic healing is important to you and your work, and how do you view the balance between personal healing and systemic healing? And Karen.
Okay, so I just want to, first of all, just like everything that Annabeth said, just so like deeply resonated with my spirit, because I do think that sometimes people are using sort of the self-care thing to sort of actually not do the work. It becomes like a way to sort of band-aid yourself so that you don't have to deal with feelings of discomfort. You don't have to, and so you just check out and unplug from sort of life and society, because I think this entanglement means that, you know, it's the African word umbutu, right? Like I am because we are. And that means that no matter where there is suffering, I am impacted by it, and that I let myself know about it. And I see it as an issue that I am intimately involved, not as a voyeur, but, you know, from a place of humanity. So part of that. And the only way that we can do that is if we are connected to each other, because no one of us can do this work alone, right? So, right, all of the work around how humans are designed. We are designed for community. We're designed for connection. We're designed for connection to the land. I'm always amazed that in spite of all of the great technology and advances, if we are not connected, certain things our brains can't get if it's not connected to doing and movement in nature, like all of the sensory stuff, right? Like sometimes we really just have to touch, taste, feel, land, knowledge for our brains to grow and heal and be well. And we also need other people. So part one, we've got to stay fortified for the journey. We've got to lean into sort of our collective historical and ancestral traditions, which means that some of us might have to go back and reclaim them and acknowledge them, because so often some of those traditions, values have been lost, stolen, misplaced, misacknowledged. So we need to reclaim that. And then last but not least, I think sort of moving forward, it's developing an appreciation for the diversity of ways that we can come up with healing, right? Because there isn't just one path, there are multiple different paths. And if we are really thinking about making room in ways that are inclusive, collective, collaborative, and addressing structural harm, we're gonna know that there are 10, 50, right? Like there are just so ways that we haven't even imagined that we could be offering, doing with each other, but we have to make room and space to appreciate those differences, hear those differences, be with people, be curious. And that requires some being more intentionally in community with each other.
I love it. It reminds me of that. Hezekiah Walker is one of my favorite gospel artists. He has a song, "I Need You to Survive." And it resonates with our interpersonal relationships as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Annabeth?
Yes. I just said yes. Yes, yes, yes. One thing I wanted to lift up from what you were just saying, can you hear me? Okay. I'm getting a signal that I'm on mute, but I'm glad you can hear me. Yeah, when you were talking about how the kind of conditioning around self-help healing, or however, you know, privatized healing, I think it not only can kind of keep us from doing the deeper work, like you were saying, but I think that kind of can be used in, like, you know, dominant society, white supremacist capitalist, you know, the colonial dominations of society, versions of society, to intentionally depoliticize healing, right? And to keep us from collectively organizing to make systems better, as in to heal the systems and structures that that dictate our quality of life, right? So that for me, this that's speaking to a framework that's been really helpful for me and has really helped me, I think, articulate these intersections that I've practiced for a long time around personal and systemic healing. And it's this framework that we call politicized healing. And it comes from the Chicago Torture Justice Center here, which is a healing center that emerged out of the movement for reparations for survivors who were tortured by the Chicago police. And it definitely, politicized healing as a framework definitely is connected to long lineages of healing justice and transformative justice. In particular, the Kindred Collective is kind of a founding group in the healing justice movement. But yeah, here at the Chicago Torture Justice Center, where I had the honor of doing some grief work and chaplaincy as part of my Master of Divinity degree. That's the framing that's used. And one of the things that's lifted up in the politicized healing framework is that our health, as in our well-being, our healing, our health, is political, because we exist within these systems and structures of power, and we so often need to engage these systems when we are trying to be well. And at the center, they always ask, who benefits when you are well? Who benefits when you are well? And who or what entity benefits when you are not well? That's kind of like another way to think about it. So this means, right, that our healing is political and our politics are healing, or at least at their best, they can be healing. And we're not, again, when we say political, it's not necessarily like, it can mean we engage electoral politics, but it's small p political, like structures of power. It's us engaging all of the ways that power operates. So we can never separate the healing of our body and our mind and our spirit from these systems. And because they so directly impact and regulate our health and well-being. So just to name them, you know, like it means that we are intentionally claiming as healing our strategizing, our campaigns, our organizing, our direct actions, our dismantling of toxic systems. We claim our rage and resilience as healing. We claim our capacity, you were talking about being open and imaginative, Karen. We claim that as healing, right? Our ability to envision and enact new and reclaimed ways of being and moving through this world. We claim all of that as healing. And at the same time, we hope and strive for these movements, these justice movements, to be places where we can heal, right? Where we make space for grief, where we lament and we name the losses, where we share the spiritual and ritual practices, where we cultivate beauty and we make art and we remember and we navigate trauma and we dig into the gritty work of repair, right? Like that it all, our healing encompasses all of that.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Annabeth, for such a powerful panel. We're going to keep the conversation going now. We have about 5 minutes of Q&A here. We won't get to all the questions, but continue to put them in the chat and we'll get to them as best as we can. So let's go to the first question that we have here. What is one healing and justice lesson you wish the environmental movement would adopt immediately? Either or can answer this question.
I can go. I mean, I think I've started to speak a little bit to that, like the environmental movement. I think, Karen, you were speaking to this too. Like, just like any other movement, there's a risk of getting siloed, right? And there's a way of doing ecological justice, and this has been, I think, the dominant way, where we don't really try to change deeply what's problematic about extractive economy, right? And we're not really trying to change what's deeply harmful and problematic at the center. We're kind of trying to do what I've heard called like green capitalism, right? Where we kind of do the Band-Aid approaches, right? So, I think the lesson, and again, it's like it's all caught up in the ecological justice movement, in racial justice, in queer and trans justice, right? Is how do we do that deeper work of transformation on the root level? And that's really hard. And the answers are complex, and like we have to struggle in them together. But yeah, I guess in short, it's like, let's check ourselves when this movement tries to get at justice on a way that stays too much on the surface, and it tries too hard to replicate ways that we've tried to change that we know don't get us to where we need to be.
Great answer. Thank you, Annabeth. And we'll do one more question. A lot of
Sorry. I thought we both were going to answer that. Sorry, Karen.
Oh, did you want to answer, Karen?
No, we'll get to the next question. I thought it was a very complete answer, so.
All right. A lot of people that don't agree and actively resist the climate justice work we do. How does this healing and justice framework help us think about this?
So that is right down my alley. So imagine if you see the resistance to climate justice as a fear-based response that comes from wounding, right? I think it changes our perspective. And so if we see them as either against and for, it actually creates more adversity, right? Because anytime we other or other ourselves or other people, it inherently creates fragmentation. And so imagine if we had a moment, we could just sort of take a moment and imagine what must be broken in you to not care about the thing that feeds and sustains you. What does that cost you? Where did you learn it? What are you afraid that you would have to give up, do differently? Where did you learn that? Because, right, more than likely that's an inherited belief, right? As people start to compromise themselves, their sense of integrity in order to fit within this dominant narrative, they've started to negotiate parts of their humanity. And so imagine as us, as people of faith and goodwill, if we decided to meet that with not demonization and anger and judgment, but from a spirit of reconciliation, of care, of compassion, and curiosity. To wonder, right? This is the trauma question. What's happened to you that has you so disconnected from the thing that sustained you? And imagine what space that opens up for relationship, but maybe for a deeper level of connection, because until we allow everybody to keep their humanity, this work can't happen. And it is those kind of structures that I think keep us from not moving forward when we do us and them and good and bad and eat right, instead of we're in this journey together and I want to meet you heart by heart and I am going to be with you right from the space of love and care and community. So that's what my offering is. And that I'm not going to acknowledge that isn't sometimes hard, where there are times where you just want to go lock yourself up and be like, those people are, I get that. But those forces have been used historically and collectively to keep us away from each other.
I love that. Ask that question. What happened to you?
Yeah.
So that is all the time that we have tonight for questions. Thank you to everyone for sharing, and to Karen and Annabeth for being on our panel and being here with us. So I'm now going to turn the stage over to Cesar Almada to introduce our speaker for the remainder of the session. Cesar.
Hello, thank you, Isioma. Thank you, Karen and Annabeth, for being here. This is a really inspiring panel, and good evening, everybody. I am Cesar Almeida. I'm Faith in Places Youth Empowerment Coordinator, and I am here to introduce a longtime friend of our youth program and of mine, Chetna Mehta. So for an introduction, Chetna is a granddaughter of Indian and South African diasporas based currently in Berkeley, California on unknown land. Their training, education, and experiences span social sciences, counseling, psychology, yoga philosophy, expressive healing arts, and so much more. Chetna continues her learnings in present-mindedness, compassion, authentic expression, freeing creativity, culturally aware and strength-based therapeutic approaches, growing and gardening, and ancient wisdom for her lineages and mitochondrial DNA. Chetna, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Cesar. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I am truly honored to be a part of this and to offer something that is very important to me in my life and how I approach my work, and that is compassion, specifically mindful self-compassion for today. And I love offering wisdom, practice, play with mindful self-compassion, with activists, with folks doing really deep, lifelong work to heal ourselves, to heal the land, to heal our relationship to the land, because it is such a long haul journey. And tools like compassion are incredible and so generative for this. So I'm really excited to be here. We will be in practice for the rest of this session because rather than talking about it, I'd love for us to be here together in our bodies, in space of rest, taking a moment to pause and to tune into what's happening in each of our bodies. So without too much waiting, without too many more words, I'm going to invite us to jump right into this practice, okay? So I invite you to close your eyes or lower your gaze, maybe even lean back in your chair, take some space from the screen if you're looking at the screen, and allow this opportunity to go inward for a few moments. I will offer some guidance, some poetry for us to be incited in our reflections, and we'll go from there. So take a moment to situate yourself, and we'll get started here in a few seconds. Let's begin by bringing your awareness to your breath exactly how it's flowing in this moment, without changing it, without assessing it, without judging it, really just noticing how your breath is flowing in this moment. And notice how your body is naturally breathing you without you having to will it or do anything. It's automatically breathing you. Noticing the depth of your breath, noticing the pace of your breath, letting it all be as it is right now. Now, this meditation will center the practice of self-compassion. The word compassion in its Latin roots means to be with the suffering. And it means specifically to be with the suffering in kindness, in awareness, and in our common humanity. Compassion, specifically mindful self-compassion, that is being compassionate towards ourselves with awareness, with pause, with slowness, like we are in this moment, has been proven to effectively relieve anxiety, depression, overwhelm, grief, fear, and it's been shown to effectively amplify resilience, gratitude, kindness, purposefulness, creativity, and connection, which are all such invaluable currencies in our justice and liberation work. We're going to focus on compassion with ourselves tonight, because we as humans are earth. We are animal. We are of the earth, and we return to the earth. And as I continue to speak, bring your awareness to what has been said, and then also how your body is receiving these words, how your breath is being influenced by what you're hearing. We are mirroring the earth in small and big ways, from the alveoli of our lungs to the life-death life cycles that we experience daily and seasonally, the way the earth does, the way nature does. And so to practice self-compassion is to practice earth compassion. When we are giving care to our bodies comprised of the earth, we are also giving care to earth. We are breathing here as earth too is breathing. So take a few moments now to notice your breath in this moment. Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist monk, activist, ancestor, said, "My joy is like spring, so warm it makes flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain is like a river of tears so vast it fills the 4 oceans." Thich Nhat Hanh also coined the term interbeing, which relates to entanglement, and Ubuntu, words that were already mentioned today, affirming our inescapable, inevitable interconnection with everything on this planet and beyond. And so may we continue to take a few moments to breathe into the earth that is your body, knowing that it has the power to amplify the currencies of ease, of peace, of connection that are invaluable for the work that you're doing. Take a moment now to notice your hands, exactly where they are. In ancient Chinese medicine, they say the hands hold a direct connection to the heart through the heart meridian, which travels from the heart organ through your arms, into your palms, into your fingers. So your hand has a direct connection to your heart, which is the seat of your love, the seat of your compassion, the seat of your unconditional connection to everything alive around you. And with your hands, we have the power to create, to heal, and to destruct. So I invite you to bring a hand to any place in your body. It could be a hand to your heart, to your belly, to your arms, even to your face. Whatever feels good for you in this moment. Giving your hands to a place on your earth, on your body. That heart to body connection, heart to face, heart to belly, wherever your hands are. To activate the energy of the heart that is compassion, and to do so with attention, like you are now, with pause, with presence, is the mindfulness piece of it. And when we bring touch to our bodies in a mindful way, in a loving, caring, attentive way, the way you might be right now, our bodies react as if someone we trust and love is giving us that touch as well. Biochemically, our bodies are releasing the same hormones of oxytocin, fostering trust and connection when we are bringing this sort of compassionate touch to our bodies. And allow yourself to move your hands to any parts of you that feel comforting or grounding or soothing in this moment. Noticing the pressure of your hands on your body. Noticing the temperature of your hands, wherever it is. Maintaining your compassion even if your mind is wandering, as minds do. And coming back to your breath, to this grounding touch that you have access to for yourself. To practice self-compassion in this way is to practice earth compassion with the earth that we have direct access to. Continue to breathe here and observe the sensations that are flowing through you, allowing all of it to be as it is. There is no right or wrong way to engage in this. Just by you being here, being willing to engage with it in any way is enough. And if you feel called to, allow your hands to communicate to your body any message that you want to give to the earth that is you. It could be, I'm here with you. I feel you. I love you. I care for you. Knowing that you are communicating this message to yourself and to the land that you are standing on, and to the creatures all around you. And now I invite you to take 3 deep, intentional breaths now, allowing yourself to breathe your body, deepening your breath deeper than it has naturally been flowing. And as you take these breaths, I invite you to breathe in gratitude for the ways in which your body is functioning. Because it is in some way, even with its challenges, even with its life, death, life cycles. It brought you here. So inviting in, whether it be a molecule or a macro amount of gratitude in this moment. For the resources that you have within you to do the work that you do. Taking time to acknowledge our breath, to acknowledge how we are breathing the way Earth is breathing, is tapping into something deeper than the fight, than the struggle, than the crisis, than the challenge, than the anxiety. It's tapping into that ecological system far vaster than any of our economical systems of oppression. Simply even by recognizing that the earth is breathing. Still. Noticing your inner landscape in this moment, noticing if there have been any shifts, however subtle for you now. And just taking note of whatever it is. Again, letting it all be as it is. And when you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes if they were closed, or gaze at your hands for a moment before coming back to the screen. Allowing yourself to see your hands as that connection directly to your heart, as a source of generative care, of kindness, of compassion that you can give back to yourself at any moment. And when you're ready, you can come back to the screen to be together again. And I invite you now, if you feel called to share in the chat, or even to unmute yourself and share what that was like for you, or what's present for you now, feel free, there's space for that. Thanks for your chats, everyone. I'm seeing calmness, time to go inward, calm and gratitude, a hug. Yes. Relaxed and centered. Yeah. Acceptance, rest, calm, hope, and positivity. And, you know, I've been thinking a lot about this word currency and what currencies I have access to in abundance beyond just the currency of money or what have you. These energies of calmness, of hope, of acceptance, these are currencies of creativity, of connection. These are incredibly generative currencies that are abundant in the earth and in us, that carry us forward in this lifelong journey that is the work that we are collectively doing in our own ways. So thank you for amplifying these currencies together here. And thanks for your continued chats. I guess I'll pass it back to Caesar or Michelle.
Yeah. Thank you, Chetna. We're really so lucky to have you join us tonight and share that healing practice. Good evening, everyone. My name is Michelle Liu, and I'm one of Faith in Place's development coordinators. I'm here to share a few of Faith in Place's available resources to continue exploring healing with your community. These resources will be highlighted in the page linked in the chat and available in this session's description. First, I want to highlight our racial healing circles led by Isioma, tonight's panel moderator. If you're interested in bringing this practice to your house of worship or organization, please reach out to Isioma to learn more and schedule one. We also have lots of opportunities to connect and heal through nature and stories. Princess Harris, our sustainable food and land use senior coordinator, offers nature hikes in person and virtually, leads an online outdoor yoga class available on our YouTube page, and regularly hosts story circles where an inspiring guest is invited to share about their life. We have many other healing resources for you, including anti-racism resources, learning and connecting with the stories of people indigenous to this land, and more. As I mentioned, these will all be available for you in the chat, and our staff team is here to share and lead healing sessions with your house of worship. As we end our time together tonight, I want to share our gratitude once again for our sponsors and partners that made our event possible. We had over 60 corporate organizations, nonprofits, foundations, and houses of worship contribute to the summit as organization sponsors. Thanks to each of you for making this event possible. I would like to close us tonight with a metta prayer from the Buddhist tradition. May all things be safe. May all things be healthy. May all things be happy. May all beings live with ease. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I be happy. May I live with ease. We hope to see each of you tomorrow during one of our networking sessions. You'll have the opportunity to attend 2, as each are only 30 minutes, so be sure to check out the available sessions to pick what sounds most exciting for you. The networking sessions will be facilitated by Faith in Place staff who are leaders in the networking topic. You'll have the opportunity to meet others from across the country interested in the topic as well. And we really hope to see you there and hope that you all have a great night. Thank you.